Hi, everyone. Welcome to May's version of the Reading Research Recap. Now it's getting late in the school year and teachers are getting burnt out. I vividly remember this time of the school year when I was a teacher. And that's why I wanted to cover this really interesting paper about teachers' emotional exhaustion and how that's related to student reading comprehension. I have to say that I'm really happy to see that this research is getting published in very credible, high impact peer-reviewed journals. And a little bit of a spoiler alert, there is definitely a relationship between teacher emotional exhaustion and student reading comprehension. In this study, the researchers examined self-reports of teacher emotional exhaustion as well as student academic emotions and student comprehension scores. And they found that high levels of teachers' emotional exhaustion was related to lower reading comprehension abilities. Now, these results are really important, and the take-home message from this is that teacher emotional exhaustion and teacher emotions in general are really important to monitor. But there are limitations with this study, and perhaps the largest one that I want to convey is that this study was cross-sectional and not longitudinal. That means that you cannot draw causal inferences from it, or put another way, it means that we cannot say that teacher emotions or teacher exhaustion caused lower or poorer reading comprehension scores in students. All we can say at this point from this study is that they were related. And that relationship could turn out to be the inverse. It could be that teachers kind of give up hope when students are feeling exhausted or have poor or lower academic emotions. Or more likely, it's not a one way, but it's a bidirectional sort of interactive relationship. We just don't know at this point. But I do like that this type of research is being done and that it's actually being published. So a step in the right direction. Related to this idea of teacher burnout and emotional exhaustion, last week was spring break for many teachers across America. So I hope you teachers out there had a nice, relaxing break. We spent our spring break in Bermuda. It was my first time visiting there. And if you've been following this recap series, you know that sometimes I'll do short segments about the history of the English language for different places that I've traveled. And Bermuda actually played a really integral part in bringing English to the United States. Now, for better or worse, we know that the history of English is tied to colonialism and the expansion of the British Empire. But even within that larger scope, there are some really kind of quirky twist of fate things that happened that had they not, perhaps English would not have become so dominant. One of the most fascinating things that I learned on this trip was that Bermuda was pivotal in saving the colony at Jamestown, and I grew up right down the road in Williamsburg. And that colony, had it not been saved, English definitely would not have taken off, probably, in America. In 1609, a ship called the Sea Venture left England to resupply the colonists at Jamestown, Virginia, with new supplies. But while crossing the Atlantic, they ran into a hurricane, which they battled for 4 days before being run aground in Bermuda. Now, this was extremely lucky because the crew survived and they were able to build new ships that eventually did make it to Jamestown. These two new ships couldn't have arrived at Jamestown at a better time because the colony was on the brink of collapsing. And for better or worse, this is how English came to the U.S., as Jamestown is the longest permanent English settlement in the U.S. Another really cool thing about Bermuda is how it's inspired English literature, so creatives and TV, not just the English language. Jim Henson, the creator of The Muppets, was so inspired by these caves on Bermuda that he created Fraggle Rock, a television series about underground creatures living in these caves in the early 80s. And of course, the famous William Shakespeare was so inspired by Bermuda and the wreck of the Sea Venture that he wrote the play The Tempest. All right, that's all that I have for May's Reading Research Recap, and I'll see everybody in June.